comes by.
Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So today I want to do some real-time sewing with you guys. I know that I had talked on my Instagram channel about showing you guys how to do gloves. These are the full-fingered glove. This is my own pattern that I created, and I am currently working on Uma Thurman Poison Ivy, and so these are the gloves that I'm trying to replicate, and I chose a vinyl type of fabric that actually feels a little bit like lambskin, like real leather. It's really soft. It has a little bit of a stretch to it, and it'll be really comfortable for a glove. Like the inside is pretty soft. So I already have one done, but I kind of wanted to walk you guys through the process of making a glove. I'm not going to show you how to install the zipper because the whole point of me doing this video is to actually show you how to build or to install your fingers on a glove. So first things first, with most patterns that you get, you're going to have your front and your back that are going to be on the fold. So the way I created this pattern is that it was actually put on the fold right here, and we're going to put gussets in between all of the fingers. Like you can see, there's little gussets put in here. And this is the easiest way that I have personally found to do gloves. I know that there's probably quite a few other ways, but this is my own take on it. This is how I've found to make them with ease and without screaming my brains out. So you're going to have your gussets, and they come in 3 because you have 3 fingers you have to do. Now I've already installed my thumb. The thumb is pretty easy to install. I do use needles when I put the thumb in, and I typically will sew with the base of the glove pattern toward the sewing machine. So I've got the thumb piece on top. If you guys want further information on that one, I could always do a video, but I just wanted to do a quick one to show you guys how I do my fingers. So I'm going to start with the top of the hand. So I need the pinky finger, the pinky finger to the ring finger. So I have the back of these marked with a P and an R, so that way I know that that one's my pinky and that's my ring finger. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put this base down. This line that I've drawn right here is where it's supposed to be in the center of your hand. So what I am going to go ahead and do, and I'm actually using a really short stitch, and I'm using my vintage machine because I absolutely love this machine, and because this side of the machine doesn't stick out as far, so you can actually get in here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take and lay down my gusset. I sit about 1/8 of an inch below where it separates, and you can see with my finger behind there, there's about 1/8 of an inch difference from this slit down to that line. Now I don't typically pin anything when I'm doing this. I just stick this in my machine and go, just because it's really hard to pin. But so what I'm going to do is I'm going to line it up perfectly against the side like this, and what I'm going to do, see if I can show you, is I'm actually going to start sewing right here, and I'm going to come in maybe 1/8 of an inch away from the edge. And I'm going to stitch all the way down until I'm 1 stitch past my little ditch right here. So where it goes down in the finger, I'm going to do 1 stitch past, which should not be to the line. It should be the difference, like halfway between your break in your finger and the line right here in your gusset. So you can see right here, I'm really close to the edge of the glove. And I want to make sure that I'm sewing the same distance. Okay, so now that you're right here, we're going to take, and it's not as sharp of a diagonal, we're going to go 1, 2. So when I put my fabrics together, they're completely lined up. And you can kind of see that we're going to come down the same way. And this finger is still, because it's underneath the back of my foot, it's pointing out that way. So then we're going to sew all the way down to the end here. Okay, so when you turn your project to the back, this is what it should look like. So another thing is if you have too much fabric in here, you might want to take just a little teeny bit out. So what I would do is I would take and just trim ever so slightly to get rid of a little bit of that bulk in there. Because when you turn this around to the other side, right side out, if you have too much bulk, it'll sit really funny. So if you pull your fabric out this way, you can kind of see what it'll look like. And you see how this has got a little bit of a curve to it? You definitely want that, because we're working with the girth of your finger. And that's what the gussets are helping, is to go around the edge. So let's try this one more time. So now we're going to take finger, your ring finger, and your middle finger. So we're going to grab our little pieces here. And that one says R and M, so that one's the one that we want. Now, with my pattern, I've actually created it so there really is no need to cut away any. So the best thing that I suggest, if you do end up buying my pattern from me, which I will have it for sale on my website, when you cut the pattern out and you cut your pattern pieces out, make sure that all your pattern pieces are the exact same size as the pattern. Because believe it or not, when you're dealing with a very small scale like this, this much fabric might not look like a lot, but when it's going around your finger, this much can mean a big difference. So, like I said, just make sure that it's cut completely the way that it's supposed to, so it looks just like the pattern piece. So we're going to go ahead and take the ring finger, so R, and we're going to line this up where the line is just 1/8 of an inch down from the slit in the base of the finger. Now, if you're really unsure of a seamstress, with these kind of like holding it and everything, you can take a pin and pin it in place. And I do have, these are the ultra fine glass head pins that you can get from Joann's. These will draw blood. Be careful. Speaking from experience, These are the best because when you're working with vinyl, the hole that it punctures is not so big that you're going to notice it, and you can actually get away with piercing through vinyls and some pleathers. Definitely check with a scrap piece before you do it. But so we'll go ahead and we'll pin that one just so you can see what it looks like before. And if this part doesn't come up all the way, it doesn't really matter, because we're going to be doing a top stitching method to join the front and back together. So again, we're starting up at the top, and I'm going to start up my pattern piece, go straight across the top. So we're going to start right about here. So we're going to start right here. And I always come through and make sure that I pull. Let me find my tweezers real quick. I always make sure that I pull on my bottom piece right here, so I'm looking over here on this side and I can see my green hanging out from behind this gray. Because it would really suck to put in your fingers, like I've done this so many times, where I put in one of the gussets to fit the finger, and then I didn't quite catch the bottom fabric, but the gusset's already in, and it's so hard to get back in there and make an adjustment after you've sewn them together. So be very careful about that. Okay, so remove our needle. And we're going to come down here. So one tick past, and we're going to kind of put it at a diagonal. And you see I'm moving my finger, but I'm holding on to this one. And I'm just making sure that it's taut. Put my foot down and do 2 steps. Turn all the way to the side. Put your foot down. Do 1 step. Lift my foot up. Turn my fabric. This can get kind of difficult, but just be patient with it and remember which finger you're working with. So if you need to grab this side of the fabric, you see how you can kind of make it go flat. So, and always keep a hold of this one, because this one's what is going to help it stay taut. So then we're going to do 2 that way. And because my finger gusset was starting to get out of control, I did a couple forward. And now that it lines up perfectly right here on the side, we're ready to come and sew down the home stretch. And then, let me zoom it back out here. I'm going to show you guys what the back looks like. So, you're not really coming up over the top of the finger. So, if you do need extra length in the fingers, the best way I could say is you always add length to the top round part of the finger. But then you'll have to make sure that you add that same distance in your gussets. So that way that the gussets in general sit right here on the sides of the fingers like that does. And then you can see this one's got a little bit of extra fabric in there, but it looks good in there. So we're going to go ahead and trim out just a tiny bit right there. One thing I can say is be very careful about how much you're trimming out, because you don't want to get too close to your stitch line. You still want there to be fabric in between your stitches and where your little ditch is. So be careful not to cut too much away right there. But when you turn it right side out, that'll look really good. If your camera focuses. There you go. Struggle. Struggle is real. Okay, so we're going to go the pointer finger and the middle finger. So there's your middle finger and there's your pointer finger. This is for the left hand glove. So there's the pointer finger and there's your middle finger. So we're going to do the same thing. We are going to sit the pattern piece an eighth of an inch away from that ditch. And I'll pin it again just so you guys can see. Oh yeah, that's another thing I want to show you. You know where I pinned earlier? Right here? You can't even see the puncture marks other than what's sewn there. So that's why I really highly suggest these needles if you're going to be working with pleathers. So now we can see that my gusset for my middle finger is a little short. So I'm actually going to move that up just a touch. I would rather the fingers be too short or too long than too short. So, and it doesn't matter. I mean, if you have, if it came down as far as it did before, it's really not going to matter because that's in the tip of your finger where, and unless you have weird shaped fingers where you have a bulb on the end of your finger, that's not going to matter. And I don't think I've seen anyone with those besides cartoon characters. So, okay. So we're going to do the same thing on this side, and so from the top to the bottom. Making sure that my sides over here are lined up and I can see my green from underneath my top fabric. Okay, so since we're at the line on this one, we're just going to do a quick V shape. So instead of 2 stitches forward, we're going to do 1 that way. We do need to do the 1 to the side. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. So here's from the back, and you can see right here already. Come on, camera. You do what I'm telling you. Okay, you can see right here I got dangerously close, but we're still within that 1/8 of an inch realm, so that's okay. We just don't want to snip anymore. And everything looks good from this side, and that's the best way to look at them when you're trying to look at this from this side, is just point the finger all the way down, and then you can see how well your stitching is. If there's anything that you have to repair, you'd want to go in and do it this way, where you pull this finger down. So just the same way that we sewed it together. That looks good. Okay, so the next thing we need to do is we need to sew your front and your back together. Now, depending on which side has the gusset, I actually like to have the gusset on top. You're going to have to figure out what's comfortable for you. This is already kind of a really intricate process, but I have found the difference of trying to add this in with the side that doesn't have the gussets being on top is harder. So what I like to do as I actually like to put the side with the gussets on top. So what I'll do, the way that I do it, is these little gussets, the flaps that are on top, I'm actually going to push them away from the seam. You can push them toward the seam if you want to, but I have found that away from the seam works best for me. So this is the fold, and I don't pin any of this. I just kind of finger pinch it and go. So I'm going to line this up the best I can. And I'm trying to stay within 1/8 of an inch from all edges. Sometimes you have to have, if you have your metal stiletto, that'll help you do this part too. Let me see if I can't get you a little closer so you can see what I'm doing. Okay, so since this top piece has more fabric attached to it, you are going to have to kind of pinch this top fabric where this seam is. What I do is I kind of pinch it so that way my sides match up. And one thing that I cannot recommend more than anything in the entire world, when you stop, always leave your foot down, because if you don't, you're going to create a hot mess for yourself. So, and if you look right here, we're pretty close to where we were before, where there's about 1/8 of an inch from the ditch in the finger to the line in the gusset. Yep. Okay, so then what I do is I hold all of my fingers to one side. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the edge of this fabric, so I'm still holding on to the gusset, and I'm going to do the same thing I did on the front. We're going to turn it diagonally and do 2 stitches to the side, 1 stitch. Then I'm going to turn it this way, diagonal, 2 stitches, and then straighten it out. It looks like I need to go a little more. And then straighten it out. Okay, so now here's where things get kind of weird. You want to still make sure that you're lining this edge up right here. We're going to move this flap into the center and this flap into the center. Now there's a lot of fabric on top because that's where our gussets are. But pinch both of those into the center right here. Sorry, I had a dog barking in the background. Okay, so what you're going to do is hold these 2 parts right here together the best you can and try not to run your finger over. And this side is still matched up. There's a little bit more of the green hanging out on the bottom, but that's okay because that's the side that doesn't have the gussets. So, and I have the pressure of my my foot set really high, so it's smashing down the fabric. That's a setting on your sewing machine. So then we're going to turn it to the side, just going up over the top, and you want to make sure that this is not hanging out in here, that you're not going to catch it. So I usually just take my thumb after I get up over the top area. I take my thumb and push that in a little bit further so I don't catch it. And then we're on to the next finger stretch down this way. So for those of you who are not sure what I'm talking about, we have, this is my 301A by Singer. This is my lovely vintage sewing machine that has slowly become my absolute favorite machine. This little knob up here is what I'm talking about. And on most sewing machines, you'll actually have this knob, and you probably have no idea what it does, but you can screw it down or up. This actually puts pressure on your foot. So when you put your foot down, how much pressure that is going down is based off of this. So another thing that I want to show you as well, if you've been with my channel for a minute, then you know that the Brother 1034D is my serger. And as you can see, this knob right here is the same exact thing. It is a loosening and tightening, and that is actually what causes the pressure on your foot. So definitely check your sewing machine, because a lot of these higher end sewing machines, or a lot of the older fashioned ones, will actually have this knob that you can adjust how much pressure your foot is putting on your material. Okay, so let's take a look at this sewing job that we just did. So here is from the underside of the glove. And as you can see, this last finger that we were doing, how I said that there's a little extra fabric hanging out, there was quite a bit there, which doesn't matter because usually pinkies are too long on all my gloves anyway. I don't know how that happens, but we're just going to go ahead and trim that off. Then you can see there's a little bit hanging out over the top of that one. Okay, so there's a little bit hanging out over the top of that one. We're going to go ahead and trim that away as well. And then we'll look at these other ones. Looks like we can trim a little bit off this one. And I just like to make sure that they're... Now, this could be too close. I'm going to say I'm going to stick this through my sewing machine and straighten that so the stitch line comes in a little bit more, because with a little bit of stress over time, your seam might actually pop out of there. And that's a good example of what you don't want to happen. So other than that, yeah, see, this one got a little bit close to that edge right here, so I might straighten that one up. So what I usually do is I'll go through, and if I'm not fixing them right away, what I'll do is I'll put a pin through the part of the glove that I want to go spend a little bit more attention with. But I'm going to switch this to the other side so we can check out what it looks like over here. So all of this stuff is extra bulk, where you folded them over, and in most cases I'll just come through and trim off whatever's sticking up. Still following in my same stitch line right here, but then when I come up here, I'm going to kind of gradually swing out further. Make sure your gusset's out of the way. And just like that. There. Looks a little funny right now, but I'll just try it on and see how well. Now these are a little bit long for me because these are actually not made for my hands, they're made for my client's hands, and my arm's too fat for this pattern, but they will fit my client just perfect. So there you have it. That is how you install gussets. If you don't like how this point is, you can always round a little bit more. I might actually go through and round the tip of this finger just ever so slightly, a little bit more. But I think for the most part these gloves turned out beautiful. And then you can see the inside of the fingers are all enclosed. And it gives your costume that professional feel and look. Anyway, if you guys have any questions or any comments, or if you'd like a more in-depth tutorial on the different ways that I install gussets, leave me a comment in the comment section below. And because YouTube is getting really weird about notifying people, don't forget to hit the bell after you subscribe to my YouTube channel, so that way you guys can get notified every time I upload. I will try to upload a little bit more frequently. Life gets kind of crazy in this little busy costume shop, but thanks for sticking with me, guys.